there's two major things affecting it, and one is just the sheer numbers of older people, and that has an impact on everything in society. So of course it's also going to change the prison system as well. So I mean, the growing older and the graying of the United States, we're seeing that it affects everything. The second one is the influence of mandatory sentencing and also longer sentences that have been initiated. And you combine that with just the growing numbers of older people as well, you're starting to see what we now see as a major increase. When you take a look at the population, you're finding in this prison population of older people, there are three different population groups. And one population group, of course, are those who've aged in place, as we say, and many other things that we do in the field of aging. But these are people who've been in the prison system for a long time, or they're lifers, and as a result, they've been aging in that prison system. Perhaps they were there in their 30s, and now they're in their late 50s or 60s, and so they've aged in the prison system. And that's one whole population, and they'll bring a whole unique set of circumstances and also some unique strategies that we're going to have to come up with. Then there's another group of people that we're finding, and those are the folks who this is a part of their whole lifespan, that they've been in and out of the criminal justice system their whole life. I mean, it could have started in their teenage years. So now you're going to find the people throughout their whole lifespan who've been in and out. They continue to be in and out in their older years as well. So that's the second population group. And thirdly, this newer group that we're finding, and we're not so sure all of the reasons why, is it's the first-time offender who's already older. You know, they're in their late 50s or early 60s, and this is the first offense they've ever had. And it's, I mean, so it's a very new kind of geriatric population who's entering the criminal justice system, and they've never been a part of that at all. So that's the third group. So there's really like three population groups that you're seeing.
He's been down entirely too long. There's no provisions really made for him. When you have to eat, you have to let him out an hour, hour and a half earlier, so that he can get down to the chow hall before the younger guys get down there and knock him out the way. It takes him 20, 25 minutes to walk up a flight of steps. You know, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, I've been incarcerated since 1948, November 17th, when my incarceration started. I'm an epileptic, and I can't use my left arm, my left side, and I'm paralyzed on my whole left side, and I'm epileptic. And I can't walk the stairs without a great difficulty. If I go upstairs, when I just start getting sick on the steps, my legs start trembling, and I'll be the first one back downstairs. There's more inmates on the block sick than me.
We looked at some statistics regarding the over 50 inmate compared to the younger 50 inmate, and we have seen some trends. One of the primary factors that separates the two groups is the area of medical needs. They do have more medical needs just as a result of the process of growing older.
The older inmate, the inmate over 50, most of the times the cost factors are 2 or 3 times more than the average inmate. It could range into, according to what their particular problems are, and they have more problems than the younger inmates. The bills are tremendous. You know, we have operations going on, we have treatment for diabetics, we have dialysis cases. Right now I'm experiencing with the problem of having about 11 dialysis cases that must go out of this institution 2 or 3 times a week. The medical cost for any one individual could range from $15,000 to $30,000 to $45,000. The medical costs are outrageous.
Now there's I think it used to be an annual exam over 40, and it was a few people. Well, now you've got people 50 and 60. You have mammograms, you have x-rays. All these things are a great expense. This is another thing that is going to be tremendous on the system. I mean, and as people grow older. And I'm not sure that they've ever even thought through to that, because it's
Look at the bottom line. If nothing else phases you, that will. What it costs you to keep a person here, not just this grounds and area, or what it costs for the support services here. Everyone, I know my family went on welfare first time, last time when I came in here. So it impacted a whole, and accessed therapy services from the community that I would have paid for privately, medical, all of those things. All of that had a bearing on the community when I came in here. It cost, I figured it out, approximately $55,000 a year to keep me here when I considered all the other services that my family would need since I'm here and not supporting. Don't present it as an errand of charity to look at our needs here. It could be the bottom line where it costs you. They say that we come here to pay for our crimes. The actual pain is from somebody else's pocket and not ours.
We're sending more people to prison for longer periods of time. More life sentences. There are over 2,000 lifers in Pennsylvania. How do you see our prisons providing for the geriatric patient, the frail, infirmed, elderly person who has a natural life sentence?
That's a problem.
Are you prepared to run a nursing home here?
I'm not prepared to run a nursing home or a mental health center. Quite often we receive mental health cases, geriatric cases. We were not designed for this type of individual. We have some people that can't walk. We don't have cells designed for that type of situation. It used to be, we didn't have that many people coming to jail under those circumstances, but everybody is coming to prison at this point in time. We're not able to accommodate them the way they should be. We manage.
The mental health problems that the older inmate has are very comparable to the mental health problems of the senior citizen on the street. They have socialization problems and they have the psychological problems of aging. And at this point, we're not officially equipped to handle that. We handle it in support groups, individual counseling when we can provide that for them. But yes, those mental health problems do exist and they are minimally addressed.
I would love to see some positive exchange between the young offenders and the older offenders. And in the experiences that I've seen, there is no interaction. In fact, there's hostility. And the older prisoners are afraid of the young.
Some of our men don't have families. They're going to need friends. They're going to need some place where they can go and talk to other people. I recently had this training, as you know, and on the panel was an older parolee. When he was in prison, he thought he was going to go home to a family, only to find that there was no family to go home to. And he responded to a question, how do you spend your time? He said, I stay in my room. My room is like a prison. Now, I ask you, is that any way to spend your days?
I've been here 9 years. Time got a little short for me now. I'm getting ready to go out of here. I've got my GED since I've been here. Had about 2 years of college. And I just want to say that I can see that what's out there for me now, if I stay in the positive way of thinking that I am now, that it'll be better for me. I can also see that there are people in society that are trying to help, that want to give us some support, that want to see some good things come out of here for us. We need job training, that we just need that type of support and concern that you would give an older individual that is trying to do better.
I don't know what I can say to you, except that you're going to have a hard road to hoe when you get out. I don't know how you can possibly get yourself ready to get out. But it's going to be up to you. It's going to be up to how you feel about yourself. It's going to be up to whether or not you can stand up and say, hey, look, here I am. I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm a little on the old side, but I'm still able to work, and I want to work. And if I do get if I get a job, then you have to tell them that you're going to be a good steady worker and all that kind of stuff. So you got to get your own self psyched up.
I've served 8 years of those 16 years. But there's some good news also, that I'm presently getting ready to leave on parole. The bad news is, once I leave on parole, I don't have a place to stay.
I have a woman here who is being housed here because she simply does not have a home plan. There is simply no one on the street to take her. The problem will manifest itself when she reaches her maximum time, because we will have to identify some place for her to go, because she won't be able to stay here any longer.
And I have to say to God, at the end of the day, thank God for being here in this godforsaken jail, because I didn't freeze to death on a park bench in Philadelphia. That's telling us something.
I have nothing now. If I go out there, I have children. But I don't have a stick of furniture. I don't have a place to live. I guess my son will let me live with them. But that's not how I would like it to be. I would like to be able to go out there and get a job. But I've noticed last year and this year, my whole body's changing, right? And I can't lift things like I used to lift. But I did some hard work in arts and crafts, and I liked the job. And but it will be hard for me. I've tried going to school. I passed the math, but it's not easy for me to remember the geography and the science. I told Mr. Here comes the old age.
Some I'm sorry to see leave. And I don't mean that in a negative sense, that I don't want them released. But I have a sense that in this environment, they are protected, cared for, nurtured in a way that they won't find on the outside of the green fence, as we call it. It's not out there for them. The best we can do, however, is try to point the way.
A lot of them who have served long periods of time, such as a lifer that's spent 20, 30 years behind bars, may not know what a Mac machine is, may not know how to use a push-button telephone, may not know how to do a lot of things that we've learned how to do by growing up with the technology and being involved with it day in and day out. So when it comes time for the parole planning, the release planning, it's a challenge for us, and we need some additional resources to help in that area.
I don't know that there is an answer. Some of these guys have been isolated for so long, I think they're going to be facing the kind of cultural shock that some of the POWs from Vietnam encountered. The cars are different, mores are different. It's going to be like entering a whole new world for some of these guys when they finally do get out of here. And it's going to be interesting to see how they can adjust to it.
What I'm doing now with the training with probation parole is alerting them to some of the problems that people do have when they come out of the institution, so that they can match up the parolee's need with existing community resources, so that they become, in a sense, referral agents. We don't expect them, given the caseload of the average parole agent, to take them by the hand to the agency, but to be able to direct them to the needed resources. And this is very important, because you can't survive out there on hope alone. You must connect up with the resources for survival.
What we're seeing with that population are people who have generally spent a long period of time in prison for whatever reason before their release, and they have basically lost touch with how to do things for themselves once they're released to community supervision. So we find people with more significant housing problems, for example, people who have lost contact with family, or family has died, and friends have died, and their contacts with the outside are very few and far between. People who need help with special things like getting disability benefits, special medical needs. Particularly with this group, we found an awful lot of these people have severe problems with alcoholism. and they take special care because of that. And of course, with the alcoholism and maybe some drug addiction also among this population, and that leads to, again, more specific medical needs. So we're seeing some significant issues that are arising, even though it's a relatively small population right now. We try to identify the more risky population and place our resources there. As you pointed out, that is going to change. There are going to be more elderly clients with more special needs that need attention, and we are going to have to take a look at how we classify people in terms of not only risk but also in terms of needs, and provide for those needs. Because if we don't, if we neglect those, many of those people may turn to a life of crime again and end up going back into the system, and it would be a perpetual revolving door. We don't see that kind of recidivism now with elderly offenders, but as the numbers grow and as the resources don't grow along with the numbers to help them, that could very well happen.
I wonder if you could give me your perception of why people return to prison, particularly the older person. Even though the recidivism rate for older people is very low, some do return.
They end up doing the same type of things they did to bring them to prison. Older people have problems getting jobs. They have problems getting parole plans. Quite often they find out that the family that they had before they came to prison is no longer there for them, simply because of the fact that some stay here for 10 years, some may stay 20. I have one inmate that's been here 42 years. Knowing his particular situation, his mother has passed, his brother has passed. He's just about lost all ties with his family. 42 years, he doesn't remember the friends he had when he came to prison. Can you imagine a person like him returning to society without any support, community support? He doesn't have the family. A man of his age would have problems finding a job. So he needs outside intervention as far as some type of support.
We can't afford parole violators in addition to all the new admissions. It's just not economical.
So you must question when a person goes out and takes an overdose of drugs or too much alcohol when they're not supposed to, and they know above and beyond the shadow of a doubt that they'll probably not get any more of those drugs in here or any more of that alcohol, and yet they know that one single act will get them back in here. That is telling you something, that there's something wrong with this setup.
What advice would you give to parole agents who are there not just to monitor and supervise you in the community, but we hope to enable you to remain in the community? How would you advise them in working with the older parolee?
Mandatory involvement in therapy. Mandatory. If you're feeling bad and you're feeling so low and so alienated that you think you have to go out and violate your parole purposely, then you need to hook up with a support group, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. All of those people will give you the kind of family support that you're evidently missing if you come back to this family, this institutional family.
And to
mandatory.
recognize what they're saying by that act. I think that's the thing. It's not necessarily, it's a cry.
They're identifying with a group of society. You put them in prison, but whether they continue to identify with that prison society to the extent that they want to come back here, that's an overriding question or problem that needs to be addressed. Once you sentence a person, you make him, force him to identify.
We've provided specific training opportunities so that parole agents all over the state and also county probation officers could have the availability of training on how to deal with elderly offenders.
I find that the older client is my best client.
An older guy may have a younger parole officer, probation officer, and they may think, well, what can this young whippersnapper tell me? You know what I mean? And the relationship, you know, involves respect. You know, and like, you know, we have to respect the officer, and in turn the officer has to respect us. I mean, like, we're trying to get our lives back together now. We're trying to do the right thing. We don't want to go back.
It's an awesome responsibility to be working with released offenders who are old. Initially, you need to have an understanding about old age, its characteristics, its values, its hazards, its hardships. But there needs to be, in addition to that basic knowledge, there needs to be a way of refocusing on new goals and new aspirations and a very important purpose that you're going to direct your attention to, and it will indeed shape your life.
One of the major benefits is that when you take our services on the Aging Network side, where we're providing case and care management services, so what we do is that we simplify trying to access all of the support services. I mean, you might find someone who could really benefit from being part of a support group. Maybe they live alone now, you've been able to find secure housing for them, but they are somewhat dependent, they can't prepare meals, they might have some basic adult daily living tasks they can't perform. Well, we could get the meals in there so that they could get home delivered meals. Maybe they would need some therapeutic kind of help. We would be able to access that service, or some personal assistance. And we have all of that in place, and we usually have our care managers do that. What's going to be real crucial is that the care management people who work with the area agencies on aging are working with those in probation and parole, so that when they have an individual who needs all of these services, the two of them can work together. And I think they have to work together. It will not work if the one system just says, to the other system, they're yours now.
Not just our three agencies that are involved here. We need to involve mental health people, we need to involve drug and alcohol people, and the whole host of community services programs that people need, whether they're incarcerated or not, because the offenders represent a microcosm of that whole population.
The stigma of incarceration of a jail term is quite traumatic, not only to you, but obviously the reaction of society is extremely negative. There has to be a change. And it's not going to come from in here. It has to come from out there, but they don't know us. Once you have a crime, that is it. They don't want to know that you were who you were before you got here, what you did, what you're like, that makes you different from somebody else. It's a mindset of society. I don't know how to get to them, because we're not all the same. And now you're going to be 60, 70 years old, or 55, 60 years old. What are you going to do?
To receive them in the community and to, in a sense, welcome them and celebrate their release with them will take a lot of education and interaction and a new view of life, and recognizing that all of us fall short of perfect behavior. We all are sinners, quote unquote, and there has to be some forgiveness and interaction.